Well, thank you all for making some time to come this evening. Appreciate it. At any point, if you have some questions, if you're tuning in online, feel free to put a question in the chat, and Matt can let me know what the question is. Otherwise, anybody in person, feel free to just throw a hand up. Happy to answer any questions you might have. This is me. My name's Kenny. I grew up in the Sun Prairie area, just northeast of Madison. So I've been here since I was 8 years old. So I call myself a Madisonian. This is my beautiful fiance, Katie, and our two kitty cats, Ted and Fred. Ted is 8 years old and Fred 8 months old. So they're like my two sons. So yeah, feel free to. So our team, we're a pretty tight-knit team. There's 9 of us. Some people like to, have larger firms, but I really like the atmosphere we have. It's very family-oriented. I really enjoy my job. I couldn't really imagine myself being anywhere else. So it's a great team that we work on. We got over 45 cumulative years of experience. We've been #1 in Madison West Side sales for the last 8 years, as far as volume is concerned. Yeah, so we have 6 realtors on the team and then 3 admin. So we have folks that help with our marketing, our social media, digital advertising, and also somebody that helps with really all the day-to-day stuff, anything that has to do with transaction. Sometimes I can miss a detail or two as far as paperwork is concerned. So they kind of help back us up there, give us a good safety net. So we have a really great team. Next, please. Well, other one. Cool. So just diving into why you might want to hire a buyer agent. That's me. So I can help you guys at least through the home purchasing process. So being a buyer in the state of Wisconsin, there's no cost to having a buyer's agent. So as far as commission goes, all commission is to be paid by the seller at closing. So when you guys do go to sell your home, you pay a commission to the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. But the nice thing is when you're a buyer, you don't have to pay that commission when you're purchasing a home. So that's a benefit for sure. Really though, I have a fiduciary responsibility, a legal responsibility to represent your best interests. So we'll actually sign a formal buyer agency agreement saying that I'm here to represent you and your best interests through your home purchase. So, and that includes anything as far as negotiation with inspections, anything from, something comes up on your appraisal. We'll talk about some of those details later, but I really am there for you from the start to the finish. And not just me, but our whole team. So a little more big picture here. We start out with is why to buy real estate. Really, I think it's good to just have it as a goal. I feel like a lot of people want to achieve the goal of home ownership. It's, right here, more than a house, it is your home. It's something you can make your own. And it's more than a money thing, I think. I think it's an emotional thing. I've been telling people that I feel more like a counselor rather than a realtor, just because of where the market is today. It's really it's a process. Thinking of, hey, where are we going to spend the next handful of years, or perhaps the rest of our life, living and starting a family. Whatever your goals are there. Another reason is to build equity. So if you've been keeping track of where home prices have been, it's kind of been a roller coaster these last few years. But in Dane County, they've gone up over 25%. So the market is red hot here. I think a lot of that has to do with our local economy, having companies like Epic and Exact Sciences and all the biotech here on the west side, American Family headquarters over there on the east side of town. It's really strong. There's so many people moving here from all over the country, and we keep meeting new people moving here really every week. So Dane County is a great place to be. Another little thing is tax advantages. You can talk to your accountant more about that, but there are tax advantages to owning a home. Is it a good time to buy real estate? Tough question, because that good time could be different for everybody. I think whatever you see on the news might not necessarily be true. So, the market's really competitive right now. So I would say it's not an easy time to buy. Like I said, it's very emotional. It's taxing. I think, to be truthful, I'm probably writing 5 to 6 offers with the clients that I'm working with before we actually get an offer accepted. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we write an offer and we get the first one accepted. It can happen. However, it's not too common. So it can be tough to write offers on homes and not get them accepted, and then do it again the next weekend, in the next weekend. So I am here to support you guys emotionally through that whole process. So yeah, I mean, a good time to buy is kind of whatever your life circumstances are. Are you in a good financial position to buy a house right now? Are you in an emotional position to buy a house right now? What does your family situation look like? Don't overthink it, but keep in mind, there's more to it than just money. So these are home values over the last couple of years. As you can see in the orange here, we got 2021, and the light blue 2022, and then in the darker blue we have 2023. So home prices have been going up pretty substantially. I mean, the average price of a home used to be $315,000, and this is in Dane County. So you could look at this a few different ways. I look at it as opportunity because the more homes that sell, the more homes are comparable at those prices. So if a home sells in a neighborhood at a certain price, their neighbor is going to say, oh, well, I could probably get my home for this price. And they're going to list it for that. And then they're going to sell it, and it's going to close for a similar price. And the more homes you have in that neighborhood selling at those price points, it's going to uphold that pricing. And we're seeing this all across Dane County. So as far as the longevity of this, I don't have a crystal ball. However, it seems with our economy and the influx of people that we have coming into town, it's pretty likely that these trends are gonna at least sustain over the next handful of years. And without further ado, I'll get more into what the home buying process looks like. But Todd Merrill with UW Credit Union is here to tell you more about how the mortgage process works.
Hi, I'm Todd. I'm a mortgage lender with UW Credit Union. If we go to last picture.
Working on it.
Holy small bits. Anyway,
It was delayed. Sorry about that.
somewhere there's a picture of me. That's me.
There you go.
So I work at UW Credit Union. I've been with UW Credit Union for about 15 years. I've been a mortgage officer for the last 3 years. Before that, I worked in mortgage, the processing end of things, and doing our in-house mortgages. Before that, I was a consumer lender. Did thousands and thousands of home equity, loans and credit cards and all that stuff. So, and all about the whole lending thing. I'm originally from Dane County, anywhere from where Northport is. That's grew up in the Northport area until I was about 10. Then I moved out to Cottage Grove, and then I've been in Sun Prairie, and for the last 20 years I've been in Stone. So I am a lifelong Dane County resident. Went to Monona Grove. Anybody in Cerritos here? That's okay. So I know the area. I know I've been in and around for my entire life. So please next. So why would you want to work with a local lender? I would like it if you work with me or one of my coworkers. That's not always the case, and that's perfectly fine. But I would recommend towards a local lender. The reason being, where you have your rocket mortgages and whatnot, they don't know the area, and their reputation isn't on the line. Talk about reputation and UW Credit Union, we got our billboards up and everything, but that's not really what gets people in the door. It's our history for being successful with our borrowers and helping them through the process with as few surprises as possible. So if our reputation is in good standing, you're not going to refer your friends to us. If you have a great experience, you might tell 1 or 2 people. If you have a bad experience, you're going to tell absolutely everybody. So we really rely on maintaining that reputation. The knowledge of the area, like I mentioned, I've been a lifelong resident. The guy at Rocket Mortgage, I don't want to pick on Rocket. They're the ones that keep coming to mind. They don't necessarily know the area in which you're moving, and it can't be a backstop for ideas. You want to think, well, what do you think about? I'm thinking about bidding over on this property. You want to talk to your realtor first about what they're seeing, but we can kind of explain the ins and outs of it and what we're seeing for any given area. And then a personalized experience. I'm available in person, on the phone, email, text, and virtually. I just worked with somebody up at Stevens Point. We did a lot of virtual meetings where we're just chatting on through Teams. So that's a great way to make sure that we're doing what we can for you as an individual. And then portfolio products. We do offer a lot of things other than that your conventional 30-year fix. which is kind of the gold standard as far as mortgage lending is concerned, but we can have other things that can lend themselves to a better buying experience for you. And then again, future transactions. We build that history, then sometimes, it's a matter of, hey, I need some documentation. Well, I already have all the documentation, so we can go back and get that. And then we, already know each other. So, you probably won't buy just one home in your life, probably buy a couple. Next one. So the process. First of all, we're gonna have an initial call or a meeting, and I think you were saying you were kind of wondering what you should be looking at. And one of the things that I do, folks, is I like to have it's like a pre-qualification, not a pre-approval, but a pre-qual, where we're talking about what you think your credit might be, what your debts and obligations are, what your credits are, what your income looks like, and what kind of assets you might have, the down payments. Do you need some down payment assistance? These are things that we can talk about. And then we put it together and figure out, okay, when you say you're paying $1,500 a month for rent, is that comfortable for you? Yeah, it's way too much. Well, then we can talk about, well, you should be looking at 200,000, 250 with 5% down. And I can show you exactly what you would be looking at as far as money out of pocket at closing, and then as well as what you're looking at a monthly expense. And then we can tailor that, we kind of dial it in. Once we have an idea of what you're going to be comfortable with, then we can work on an actual pre-approval. That's where we take an application, pull credit, I'll collect your W-2s, pay stubs, and then we'll get a pre-approval. And what I like to do is I like to issue a couple of pre-approval letters. One has some specific information about dollar amounts. Hey, you're approved up to 350, 400,000 with 10% down. If that's what you're looking at. And then I'll produce another one that doesn't have that information on it in case we're unable to connect and you're about to make an offer on a property. Ideally, we would connect before you make an offer on a property, so I can produce an address specific letter for you. And then I would have also be able to help you see what those numbers look like, because the taxes are going to be different for every property. And to give you the most accurate idea of what you're looking at, I like to pull the taxes on the property that you're going to make an offer. So once we get that accepted offer, so you're working with Kenny, and you should, because he's great. He's going to call me up. He's going to, hey, we got an accepted offer. Fantastic. And I'll get a copy of all the paperwork. And that's where I start. I go through the offer and I make sure that we have everything that we need to move forward with it. And then I'll reach out to you and, we'll talk about the terms. Hey, we did the pre-approval based on this. Doesn't mean we can't change it. Here's what we're looking at right now. And if you're comfortable with that, I'll send out some disclosures. Now, all lenders use the same format for disclosures. And the most important one is called the loan estimate. You can actually apply with multiple lenders, and it's not necessarily a bad idea to do so. And we'll all give you the same loan estimate. You can put them side by side, and you can see exactly what your costs are. So it's a great thing to do. And then I'll get the disclosures out to you. We'll review them, go over them, sign them, get them back, collect your deposit, and we're off to the races. Then I'll introduce you to the rest of my team. I'm paired with one particular processor, her name is Shenlin Wang. She's fantastic. We were talking about your transaction coordinator who double checks all your work. My processor double checks all my work, and she's going to be a point of contact for you to make sure that we got all the stuff that we need. From there, once we have everything, we submit it to our underwriters, and then they issue what's called a commitment. Commitment is tentatively an approval. That's saying you're approved for this. We get the commitment to your realtor. Kenny, you go, fantastic. You did this in such a short term. Wow, you're amazing. And he sends it off to the selling agent, and everybody's happy. Then we go to closing. And I try to make it to most of the closings. And I don't have anything to do with the closing. I just sit there and go, enjoy your home. So one of the things that Kenny's going to talk about a little bit, you are going to hit on PMI and down payment, right? I just want to touch on PMI, private mortgage insurance, and down payments. And I'm going to back up a little bit. Kenny was asking, posing the question, it's now a good time to buy a home. And some people want to wait until they have 20% to put down on that home. That's when it's a good time for them. Well, while you're waiting, home prices are continuing to increase. So there's that to think about. So what you're going to get to that 20% down, that what is 20% just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You can get into a home a little sooner as a first-time home buyer. You can get in with as little as 3%, 3 to 5% down. And again, there is some down payment assistance available if you should need it, and you got to qualify for it. But what PMI does is it allows you to put less down payment. We have less than 20% down. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, our investors, see it as an increased risk, so they do charge this additional fee. However, it is tiered every 5% that you put down. So if you put 3 to 5% down, you're going to pay one tier. If you put 10% down, you're going to pay a different tier. So if you're holding it, you're at 15%, and you're holding out that last 5% in your savings, might not be worth the wait, because the PMI can actually be very cost effective. Another reason why not to maybe go with 20% down is maybe you don't want to go through all your cash. It's good to have cash on hand to buy a home. Maybe you want to remodel a room, right? Maybe it's just good for emergencies. But these are all things that we can talk about too, in greater detail. We also offer a program. It's called an adjustable rate mortgage, or an ARM. They work for a lot of people. Some people are adverse to those because after a set period of time, those rates can adjust. They can adjust up or they can adjust down. If you're risk averse, you might think, I really don't want to go with an adjustable rate mortgage. Well, what we like to say is you marry the house, but you're dating the rate, because you can always refinance at any point. I've owned 2 homes over the last 30 years, and I've had 7 mortgages. First home I got at 9 3/8. My parents were happy for me because it was a great rate at the time. And then I refinanced every time the opportunity presented itself to get into a better rate. So that's something to think about. With the ARM, if you're putting 10% down, we can often waive the PMI charge. So there are options for saving some money. Typically, ARMs cost less to get into the big scheme of things. Not always, but sometimes. And then please interrupt with any questions.
Tom, what did you say your first mortgage rate was?
9.375. And the funny thing was, I didn't even really think about it because I wasn't in this industry. I was in the printing industry at the time. And I was just, hey, can I afford the payment? We had a $485 a month rent payment on the northeast side, loft. In fact, it was so small, we had to go outside to change our minds. Jeez. Anyway, sorry. I'll be here all week. So 9 3/8, then we refinanced that home twice in the 30-year mortgage. We did it once at 7.5, and then once in the upper 6s. Then we bought our next home at, I want to say 6.5% around 2007. Refinanced it at 5% into another 30-year, then refinanced it into a 20-year at 4.5%. Then most recently refinanced it to a 15-year at 2.875. So lots of mortgages, and it's always made sense. Any questions for me?
All right. So once you get pre-approved with top, and you should, I'm gonna get you set up on home search. So I'm assuming a lot of you have Googled homes for sale, gone on Zillow, perhaps Redfin, Realtor.com. My opinion, I think it's a little overrated, a lot of those search sites. We actually have access to an app called HomeSnap, which is through our firm Realty Executives, and also this tool called the Collaboration Center. So I can customize you guys up for a home search with all the criteria that you want. I can adjust it at any time, and what's nice, it stays up to date. Zillow, you can often see, oh, hey, this home's for sale. It looks beautiful. It's been on the market 60 days. I can tell you right now, there's not a home in Dane County that's been on the market for 60 days. And you probably want to be sending your realtor homes that are actually for sale. So these two tools that I mentioned, it stays up to date to the second. So anything you see on there, feel free to reach out to me and we can go take a look at it. To sort of prep you for what the spring market brings. The spring is probably the busiest time of year for real estate. It's when the majority of folks in Wisconsin list their home because the weather's like it is today. It's beautiful and it's not snowy and below zero. So typically Wednesday, Thursday, you'll see a home go on the market. We'll have the weekend to see it, and then Monday they're going to be reviewing any offers that they get. So once we kind of get into the fall and the winter time, you see that a little bit less, but there's also less homes for sale, so there's less to choose from. So kind of pick your battles on that one. But you know, really, kind of going back to what we were saying before, the right time to buy a home is when it's right for you. So don't let that, you know, sway you too much, but just know that that's sort of how the real estate market works here in Dane County. So yeah, we'll start seeing homes. I really love to get to know what you guys do like in a home, what you don't like in a home. Because then I can, when I'm searching and seeing homes that maybe haven't come onto the market yet, or maybe my colleague Matt has a listing that's, you know, not yet live and active on the market, I can see that and say, oh, Brent really likes a nice big island in his kitchen, or he likes a gas range stove. This has both of those things. I'm going to send this to Brent because I think Brent would like it. Then we can go see it and perhaps get a deal done off the market where you don't have to deal with this competing. So that is obviously the preferred way to do it. It doesn't always work like that, but any opportunity I can get to go and see a few houses with you guys, even if you don't think it could be a fit, let's go see it anyway. Let's kind of get an idea for, you know, what areas you like and what features you might like. So as far as the nuts and bolts of things, of what it actually looks like to write an offer, who in here's bought a home before? Okay. And everybody else first time home buyer, right? Cool. So as far as actually writing an offer, so first thing you want to think of is earnest money. Think of this as like a security deposit. So you're going to be putting, I'd recommend at least 1% of the purchase price down. Use even numbers, so round up or down. $500. We don't have to do it exact. So $400,000 house, you want to put $4,000 down upfront, and we only submit earnest money if your offer is accepted. So you're not sending out checks every time you're submitting an offer, and if it doesn't work out, get your money, you know, that's too complicated. So if your offer gets accepted, you'll submit the earnest money. It goes towards your down payment. So on closing day, say you bought that $400,000 house, that $4,000 is going to come back to you and go towards your closing costs and your down payment. So that money does come back, but the idea is that you're going to stay in the deal. So that money is essentially, you know, something you're putting forth and saying, hey, I really do like this house and would want to get to the closing date. So the inspection contingency, I recommend doing an inspection. Sometimes you can get away without doing one on a brand new house or a house that was built just a couple of years ago. But I always recommend doing one. Now there are, we'll call them not risk adverse people that are willing to waive their inspection contingencies in the competitive market today. What I would recommend to keep up with folks who are doing that, you can get an inspection done, and we'll have 2 weeks to have an inspector come in. Obviously, we have a recommended inspector that we're going to recommend to you guys. By the way, take note, it's about $500 to get an inspection done. So that's a cost you can expect to incur along the way. But it's really nice. If there's nothing wrong with the house, you get a 30-page report. Very detailed and saying, hey, you know, what kind of maintenance do you need to do on this house? Or, oh, this is a little older home. There's a boiler. I've never used a boiler. How do I keep up with that? So it's nice to just learn about the home. So I definitely recommend getting an inspection done. But going back to the competitive nature of it, you can say that you're willing to cover the cost of X amount of dollars, potential damages that could come up on the inspection report. I've seen people do as much as $15,000. I've seen people do as low as, you know, a few $1,000s. You know, it's whatever you're comfortable with. But I'd say everybody, especially in the competitive spring market, is putting some sort of number in here, just to stay competitive. But let's take a hypothetical scenario on this $400,000 house. Let's say you guys wrote an offer and you're willing to cover the first $5,000 potential damages on an inspection report. Let's say the inspection report comes back, the foundation's falling in, the roof needs to be replaced. Like $30,000 worth of stuff that we need to take care of. We'll get a licensed contractor out there to get bids, and we'll take these bids, deliver it to the seller, and say, hey, we need you guys to fix this, or we need to do a price reduction, or we need to get a closing cost credit. There's a few angles we can take with it. We'll cross that bridge if we get there. But ultimately, if you guys don't feel comfortable moving forward, please tell me, and we'll do what we can to look at other options and get your earnest money back 100% of it. That's why you have the inspection contingency in here. If it's past that 14-day time frame and you say, oh wait, what about that? There's nothing we can really do at that point. So it's important to get everything done in a timely manner regarding the inspection. Anyone have questions about that?
Maybe I just missed it. What were you saying about why would buyer be potentially covering a dollar amount for problems with the house? Are you just saying like discounting the selling price for that much, or not like literally, but like
Sure, maybe as far as like saying, like when we're writing our offer saying, hey, we're willing to cover the first X amount of dollars.
right?
For sure. That's mainly just to stay competitive. So say you and I write an offer on a house, and there's 5 other offers on the table. Probably a good chance that a few other people are including some sort of a buffer to say, hey, we'll cover $5,000 of potential damages on the report. Okay. Or maybe someone's covering more, or perhaps somebody doesn't have an inspection contingency in that.
Right.
So to the sellers, they want they want you to take on as much of that risk as possible. Okay. That answers your question.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else?
The question, I don't know if you're gonna cover it later, but
Yeah.
say there's 5 offers on a home.
Mhm.
Do you see it often that they just go for the highest offer, or I've known some people like write a letter and be like, this is my family's home. Yeah. So do you see that, or is it more like highest offer, objective, boom?
Yeah. Not necessarily. I think they're in my opinion, as a realtor, I would say, yeah, take your highest dollar amount, right? So I'm thinking of from a business perspective.
Sure.
But it could be somebody that's lived there 40 years and it's their neighbor wanting to buy it, and they wrote a letter, and maybe it's 10 grand under the next best offer, but that 10 grand, it's not what's important. I'd say more often than not, yeah, the dollar amount is the most important thing. However, that's not always the case. And sometimes it doesn't come down to how much you're offering, but what are your terms? Are you willing to cover, we'll get into some more of this, but are you going to be including a buffer in your inspection? Like if it's an older house that probably needs some work, if you're willing to cover, $5,000 or $10,000 of potential damages on the inspection, and you're offering, a certain dollar amount, Joe Schmo could be over here not wanting to cover any of the inspection dollars and offer a higher amount, but to the seller, maybe it's more important to, be risk adverse for the inspection. So there's a handful of things for sure. So this is where Todd comes in a little bit. So we're gonna have a financing contingency. Typically 30 days is what we want for Todd to get all your financial documents, social security cards. Maybe that though. So finance contingency, the appraisal contingency, we want that to be 30 days as well, just to line up. So one thing, Brent, that sellers usually want to see is for that appraisal contingency, what that means is, let's say it's they're listing this house for $400,000, right? These sellers are probably expecting the home to appraise for $400,000. And I guess I could even back up and say what an appraisal is. An appraisal is somebody who determines the value of the home. So they're gonna, whatever they say the value of the home is what the bank is gonna give you. So they're expecting the home to appraise for at least $400,000. If you are doing financing and we have this appraisal contingency in here, then the sellers are going to want to see, oh, hey, you're offering $430,000. but you have an appraisal contingency. If the appraisal comes in at $400,000, are you willing to make up some of that gap in cash? Property down payment. So Todd could touch on this more, I suppose, if you'd like,
Yeah,
as far as what gaps look like. It gets a little complicated here.
so I'm gonna use really basic numbers because it's works easier to find fingers and toes. Let's say you're buying a home for, it's $100,000 home. And you're offering. Let's say you're offering 105, they're listing it for 100. And you're offering 105,000. And the appraisal comes back at 100. Well, you have to cover the spread. So let's say you put 3% down. Well, 105, helping with the math here. The 105 would be $3,000. Yeah, if it was $100,000 home, let's do that.
Yeah.
If it was $100,000 home with 3% down, then you would have a $97,000. So if the appraisal came back lower and you were to stay at 3% equity position, you need to put additional funds down to cover that stuff, whatever that is. So if the appraisal came back at 50,000, but you would have to cover 50 grand plus what it takes to get to that 97% value. And this is where the appraisal contingency gets to be really kind of it's a bargaining chip that Kenny uses to help advance your offer. You have to be willing to, you have to, but it's often in your interest to be willing to cover a certain amount of a shortfall in an appraisal. One of the nice things about Dane County is that the vast majority of our appraisals, about 90% of them, come back at list or above. Dane County is in some ways above. So we're not as threatened here by bidding over. But the appraisal contingency costs protect you too. So if the appraisal comes back way under, then you do have the option to say, I'm not going to cover that at one way.
Right. No, that's helpful.
Are you able to also renegotiate purchase price?
Yes. Now, what's a lot of sellers are going to want to see is that on the front end, when we submit your offer, that we actually state explicitly how much money you're willing to cover over the appraised value.
And these are things that we also have a conversation about early in the process too, as we're talking about what assets you have in place. So if you are making an offer where you are going to be potentially covering the spread, you want to make sure that you have what's available. These are, that's all part of the early conversations. You're going to have those with me, you're going to have them.
Yeah. We try to figure out what your comfort zone is, what amount of money you're putting down. And oftentimes, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can use some of your, if you have a sizable down payment, oftentimes you can use part of your down payment to cover some of that spread on the appraisal. So you'd be putting less money down. And if you have 20% down, and you're going to be covering some of that spread, you're dipping into 20%, you could be paying private mortgage insurance. Unless you're doing a 10-year on.
It's going to take out. But it could be too, where that EMI is so small that it's not worth really spending a lot of time thinking about it. And really what it comes down to when you're buying a home is what's it worth to you? That's what the real price should be. It's what it's worth to you to spend. If the appraisal comes back lower than what you offered, but if you have the funds available, then and you like the house, you were fine making that offer to begin with. I would just move forward. That's I can't make that decision. It's really good.
And again, if that difference is so vast that it's just not going to work out, tell me how you feel, and we'll do what we can to move forward, look at other options, and get all your earnest money back because we have this appraisal. Hopefully we didn't lose any of you there. Does anybody have questions on any of that?
It's done.
Anybody go outside, so.
Do you get to be outside a lot?
I would say so, yeah.
Like going between them?
Yeah, it's fun. I like doing that.
I was working remotely, so I know a lot.
But don't worry, when you work with Todd, he's sweating the whole time.
I figured about it, and I'm just waiting for a call.
Awesome, yeah, so one thing we just wanted to close with is, if you're thinking about building, we can definitely help with that. We know a handful of reputable builders in the area, and the builder is actually the seller. So it's good to hire a buyer's agent for that process as well, because we can represent your best interest throughout the build. So we'll be there for all the walkthroughs, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, make sure everything looks up to snuff, at least from our perspective. And we could also help you with what upgrades, where you should potentially spend your money. You know, hey, should I put this $5,000 chandelier in my house? Well, you're probably not going to get your money back on that. But if you put that money into your master bathroom, probably will. You know, little things like that, we can kind of help steer you in the right direction for what we think as far as the resale value goes. But yeah, I'm happy to help with any type of building. So just keep that in mind if that's something you guys want to explore. That's a popular option in today's world, given how competitive the market is. Sometimes it is a good option to build and just kind of have it be one set price and not have to worry about bidding over and these sorts of things. So that about wraps it up here. So I would love to meet with you guys individually, not today necessarily, but in the future, and just kind of learn more about what your goals are for home ownership, what you're looking for in a house, and Todd, the same. With the lending side of things, we've been working together for a few years now, and smooth sailing. So
We do have a question from online.